Before we dive into today's episode, I do want to start this video off with a moment of respect. This Deluxe Edition Volume 14 marks the final volume that the legendary Kentaro Miura was able to make before his passing in 2021. The pages that we're about to experience marks the last new Berserk content from the mind and the hand of the man who started it all, the man who poured his soul into this series for decades. Miura's work has touched and inspired millions of people across the world, myself included. His dedication to his craft, the raw emotion in every panel, and the unmatched depth in his storytelling changed manga and many of our lives forever. So as we go through Deluxe Edition Volume 14, I want to take a second to honor Kentaro Miura and the incredible journey that he shared with all of us. Now, let's continue the story. Starting off this Deluxe Edition Volume 14, Shiraka and Farnes continue their journey through the corridor of dreams. They battle some truly bizarre and disturbing creatures, and the deeper that I got into the sequence, the more it hit me. These monsters are manifestations of Casca's trauma from the eclipse. And at first I thought, okay, these designs are kind of phallic. It quickly becomes clear that it's completely intentional. This is her worst nightmare given physical form. We also get more of that terrifying hound version of Guts. He even dons the Berserker Armor to fight the final boss of the dream world, which is a clear symbolic representation of Griffith to retrieve the last fragment of Casca's mind. For both Shiraka and Farnes, this whole sequence is giving a heavy hint of what Guts and Casca actually went through during the eclipse, even if they don't have the full picture yet. And I'll be honest, this entire healing sequence was much shorter than I expected. After the massive journey of the Millennium Falcon arc and the early Fantasia arc, just to reach this point, I thought there would be more trial and error. I was totally ready for another sorry Mario, your princess is in another castle situation. But no, they put Casca to sleep, they enter her dreams, and within basically a chapter or two, she wakes up. But man, what a moment it is. Watching the entire party react to the real Casca is beautiful. Her expressions, her presence, it truly hits hard. Though I will say the art style has evolved quite a bit at this point, so she does look a little bit different than earlier in the series. What I loved most is that even while trapped in her broken state as Elaine, the name Luca gave her, Casca was still conscious on some level. She remembers everything, and despite the version of her that hated Guts for what happened, the real Casca still loves him. That quiet, powerful reaffirmation of her feelings is incredibly moving. But of course, Berserk isn't going to let it be pure sunshine and rainbows. When Casca first wakes up, she doesn't remember the eclipse at all. She even says that she wants to see Guts, but the second that she lays eyes on him, everything comes flooding back. The strong, proud warrior we know completely breaks. She can't even look at him. The sheer trauma of what happened during the eclipse completely overwhelms her. And honestly, I'm surprised Guts is held together as well as he has up until now. Needless to say, that event broke them both in completely different ways. Next, we cut over to Griffith in his new Band of the Hawk. I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely sure what his full endgame is here. He's taken his new army and is actively reconquering the continent, wiping out the astral monsters that were unleashed when the world merged. On one hand, it feels strange that he's cleaning up the chaos that he helped create, but on the other hand, it makes sense if he wants to rule over a stable human kingdom. We also get a clear Stonehenge reference. The ancient structure had been scattered, but they reassemble it, turning it into a massive teleportation gate. The only catch is that either Griffith or his medium must be present to properly open and navigate the sky pathway. Still, it allows his forces to travel across the continent in moments. This greatly expands what Griffith is capable of. Later, we sit through a long, very political meeting about the future of Falconia. Charlotte suggests opening orphanages and schools, an idea that Griffith immediately supports. It's smart, educating the new citizens, indoctrinating them into this new world order, and preventing future uprisings. They're clearly thinking long term. Of course, the politicians start arguing about funding and raising taxes, the usual nonsense. But what really stands out is how serious Griffith is. He doesn't just want Falconia. He wants wants the entire continent. He's already planning to establish bases everywhere. Since the manga is still ongoing and chapters are pretty rare, this kind of feels like the perfect time to start theory crafting a little bit. I believe that Miura was setting up a future where Guts and the crew slowly retake each one of these bases as he reaches Falconia, with Falconia serving as the final boss arena. That's just my theory, of course. I could be completely wrong. One more wild detail, we see that Minister Foss is back in Griffith's cabinet. After everything that happened during the Golden Age, it's insane to see him still alive and holding some degree of power in Falconia. Back at Elfhelm, Casca's got herself a fresh new haircut, and for once, everything feels like sunshine and rainbows. This is our first chance to really see what Casca is still capable of. The entire crew gathers around her, wanting to see if she still got it, and lo and behold, she absolutely does. Now that Casca is fully back, we finally get the dynamic that I've been waiting for this entire time. Everyone gets to meet and talk to the real Casca. She gets to speak with Isidro, Shiruka, and Farnese, and this is what the story has been building towards, and the payoff feels so welcome. Isidro sees this as the perfect opportunity to ask Casca to be his sparring partner, which I think is awesome. He hasn't really had a good training partner up until now, and he sparred with Guts, but Guts is just on a completely different level. He's not ready for that yet. Respectfully, Casca isn't either, so having her as a partner should be really good for his growth. Right after the sparring, we get a beautiful moment where Casca still clearly has a heart for Guts. Even though she can't look at him right now, she does her best to communicate with him, asking him to stand behind a tree so she doesn't have to see his face and trigger her trauma. It's completely understandable. And one detail that I never considered, Isidro actually reminds Casca of Judo, and that was such a nice touch because Judo was one of my favorites in the original Band of the Hawk, right behind Pippin, of course. Ever since they mentioned it, it really does feel like Isidro is meant to be Judo's successor in this new group. And of course, this conversation becomes way too heavy for Casca, and this is just me being kind of selfish, but I don't really want this dynamic to drag on for too long. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like telling her to get over it or anything. Me personally, I just really hate seeing her go through this much torment now that she's back in her right mind, and I really do just hope the best for her healing. We also see that Farnese is studying under Danan to become a healer because she wants to keep helping Casca even after they leave Elfhelm. Danan gives Farnese a new mage outfit, and both Shiruka and Farnese get to show the other mages what real battle experience looks like, and they absolutely wipe the floor with them. It's great to see. Me personally, I've been wondering why Farnese is so magically gifted up until this point, and in my headcanon, I believe it might have something to do with her royal bloodline, which may give her a natural affinity to magic. Hopefully it does get explained in the future, but that's just my headcanon for right now. We also get a lot more screen time with Morda, and I'm really liking her character. She and Shiruka seem to be getting along well, and she feels like someone who could join the crew. She has a great design and personality, and she clearly doesn't feel like she belongs in Elfhelm. She wants to explore the outside world, and the fact that they added her to the character summary page at the beginning of the volume makes me think that she might be sticking around. Meanwhile, Guts is training by the cliffside when the Skeleton Knight suddenly appears, and this is the first time that the Skeleton Knight actually sticks around for a proper conversation instead of just dropping cryptic lines and leaving. He knows a lot of people here in Elfhelm, and they all seem very familiar with him, almost like an old friend. It's becoming more and more clear, even if it's not fully confirmed, that the Skeleton Knight is the legendary Emperor Geisric from long ago. The Skeleton Knight takes Guts underground through a maze to meet the original creator of the Berserker Armor, and this dwarf looks a bit like Godot, which makes Guts think of him. And when the smith taps the armor with his hammer, it goes berserk, but he's able to control it. Guts then experiences visions from the armor's previous user, which I'm pretty certain is the Skeleton Knight, but it's not entirely confirmed. And we see that this previous user had a lover who looked exactly like Danan, and that he also went through his own eclipse with a completely different god hand. Only one member is the same as the current god hand. The other four are different, and this is huge. It suggests that the god hand can be replaced, which means that they can potentially be defeated, and that tiny detail gives me real hope that a true ending is possible for this story. Later, we learn that the Skeleton Knight's lover is buried here in Elfhelm. Danan shows up and they share a quiet moment together. There's definitely something meaningful here. The second to last chapter in this volume ends with some lighter, almost filler-like vibes that are surprisingly welcome. After everything everything that we've been through, seeing the crew just being a crew feels earned. It doesn't feel like the same brutal Berserk sometimes, but in the best way possible. A lot of clear references to Star Wars are present during this chapter, which I completely forgot to mention, but I'm gonna mention it here. Miura just absolutely loved to make Star Wars references with Puck, and it always brightened up my mood. However, I do have one lingering worry. The original Band of the Hawk had a very tragic ending. What if this newfound family meets a similar fate? That would destroy me, honestly. The volume closes on one final bombshell. The mysterious child who's been following them is revealed to be the child born from Guts and Casca, now carrying Griffith's essence, which is one of the biggest twists in the entire series. What does this mean for the future of the story? Is this version of Griffith hostile, or is this more Guts and Casca's child taking over Griffith in a subconscious state? I have no clue, and I feel like we'll be able to flesh that out a little bit more through the unvolumized chapters, which we're going to cover later on this week. This was an absolute roller coaster of a volume, even if it was significantly shorter than the other ones. We got some of the most beautiful character moments in the entire series, some wild lore drops, and one of the most heartbreaking plot twists imaginable at the end of this volume, especially knowing that it was Miura's last chapter. For all of you who have stuck around for this series, thank you so much for joining me on my journey through Berserk, and thank you for sticking to the end of this video and following me on my journey through Deluxe Edition Volume 14. It has been an absolute blast up until now. Berserk has actually become one of my all-time favorite stories, and I'm going to be here until the very end. And my personal message to Kentaro Miura, rest in peace. You created an absolute masterpiece.